Langley, you had General Moussa Bamou overthrow the government in Niger. And it won't surprise anybody here that we trained him. The person who overthrew the democratically elected government in Niger went to the National Defense University, trained at Fort Benning, Georgia. So, do we share core values with Moussa Bamou?
Congressman, let me just go ahead and state that core values is what we start off with. But there is no syllabus for overthrowing the government, not in our institutions.
Well, they're learning it pretty well, even in the absence of a syllabus, right? Because if you look at Chad, Burkina Faso, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, in a lot of these countries, the coup is led by someone we trained. Now, I put in the National Defense Authorization Act a requirement for you to issue us a report as to how many coup leaders our taxpayers have funded the training for.
But let me say, there's no correlation and there's no causation of U.S. training to these members.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out, because in like a dozen countries, the coup leaders are people we trained. Like, is it safe to say that this failed, General Langley?
It's safe to say that there's no correlation or causation of U.S. training to a coup happening.
Recently, there is a so-called NGO. It's not even an NGO, because NGO stands for non-governmental organization. They are not non-governmental because they are funded by a federal budget, by a state. This so-called NGO produces reports claiming that the FDS and the VDP commit abuses. It went in here, it came out there. It's to tarnish your morale. It's to scare you, to prevent you from being able to fight. No. Moreover, we are going to file a complaint against this NGO because people need to understand something. What is happening to us here? It's true that they have manipulated part of our populations in the Sahel here, but they didn't have that kind of weaponry. What brought such significant weaponry into their ranks? It's Libya. Who destroyed Libya? It's this NGO, the same NGO that made false reports and gave them to those who wanted to create a rebellion so that people would intervene and overthrow Gaddafi. And the powder keg ended up being poured into the Sahel. These millions of lives that have been taken in the Sahel, we must file a complaint against this NGO because it is responsible for these false reports it made to support this thesis of attacking Libya. They have no moral lessons to give us. Look at the world. Let them go defend human rights all over the world first before coming here. We are fortunate to have similar situations in this world. You voluntarily committed yourselves. There are countries where people are forcibly taken, killed. You leave or you die. Others, even while trying to flee, end up dying. They don't talk about human rights because these people see us as subhumans. They see us as slaves. That's how it is in their minds. They have never changed their mindset, but it's up to us to show them that we are not slaves and we will never accept this state of affairs. It should not affect your morale. In the history of the world, there have been wars. And during the Second World War, people organized themselves to defend all over the place. But there is a country that could not defend itself, which had to come and take our ancestors to go defend them. And today that same country wants to give us lessons. The pot calling the kettle black. No. You are the descendants of those same ancestors who went to defend others, who liberated the world from Nazism. Today you are fighting for your lands. These same individuals dare to create terms to tarnish you. We oppose this. We will never agree. Continue to defend your lands. Imperialism, as Thomas Sankara said, is a poor student. A very poor student because no matter how much you chase it out of the classroom, it will come back with the same methods. It cannot change. And often, it becomes ridiculous. When you look at the imperialist media today, you see what they publish. They use the same method to set Rwanda on fire, the same method to destroy Sudan, the same method to destroy Africa. It will not work. And today, I think you are well aware. They are very skilled at manipulating information, creating falsehoods all around. And mind you, these same media, I say it loud and clear today, especially Jeune Afrique, courted us at the very beginning of 2022-2023. They went through several channels to approach us, to make us pay and clean up our image, as they say. We refused. They cannot deny it because we have the evidence with us. They sent people. That's how they operate. And many heads of state fall into their trap. They pay money every month for articles to be published to clean up their image. No, it's dangerous. They only live off that. You pay the money, they lie. There you go. They have your image. You refuse, they lie to destroy your image. But all of Africa must be informed. And if Africans want to progress, they need to stop listening to these deceitful media. Because as long as you keep listening to false information, it eventually becomes a reality. And it's very dangerous for us. Disinformation is rampant. At our level, we experience this every day. And I always tell people to be very careful. All this is to divide and conquer. So, each damn person, each group must be able to perceive, the maneuvers of imperialism to advise one another, and together we remain united to build our country.
Our African partners understand that we're here to help them reach their overall national goals of stability and security. But when we bring our assurance actions and our African campaign plan, there's a number of things by Russia and China that are pushing and shaping onto our African partners, especially across their society, that changes ways and a departure away from international norms. The PRC and Russia are also remaining exploitative where possible and coercive when necessary. They want that ground. They want power projection capabilities. So for the most part, the rest of the continent is also for mining concessions, whether it be gold or rare earth minerals. Both of them have a long-range plan.
Thank you. Chair Langley, can you talk about why we care about what's happening in Africa right now? I mean, if you tell the American taxpayer, why are we there? Why are we spending the money we're spending there?
Thanks for the question, Senator. For access and influence. I'd say that a number of countries are at the tipping point of actually being captured by the Russian Federation, as they are spreading some of their false narratives across Libya. And from a strategic answer piece, access influence across the whole Maghreb, that is NATO's southern flank. We need to be able to maintain access and influence across the Maghreb from Morocco all the way to Libya. The PRC and Russia are also remaining exploitative where possible and coercive when necessary. They want that ground. They want power projection capabilities. So for the most part, the rest of the continent is also for mining concessions, whether it be gold or rare earth minerals. Both of them have a long-range plan. But I think at the accelerated pace, the Russian Federation is really trying to take over Central Africa as well as the Sahel. So, Senator, right now, China has a plan, a long-range plan, but they're coming in with their Belt and Road initiatives. But I think they do have global aspirations for a security construct to get a decisive advantage over the United States. We need activities and investments to deter that. especially engaging with our partners, our African partners, and telling them to ensure that they're not militarized. So this takes information campaign that's successful, but also assurance actions of building partnership capacity where they won't need China in their false offerings of security construct.
Thank you.
So General Langley has revealed quite a bit that we are in Africa for access and influence. I guess access to the gold and natural resources and influence to influence the government on doing what the United States want them to do. I think France and the US have nobody else to blame but themselves for the split of some of these African countries. That they're in there to line their pockets is not what the US has been doing and a lot of European countries, namely France. It's the pot calling the kettle black. And at the same time, downplaying the role of China and Russia because they're not treating them fairly. They've never treated them fairly. They're going in there and taking the raw materials, taking it back to their countries, refining it, and then Africa, the same place they got it from, have to buy back the refined material at a higher cost. So it makes absolutely no sense for African nations to continue this same old policy of natural resources being stolen, for a lack of a better word. It's being stolen right from under their feet. They got the natural resources there. They got everything that they need to build a rich nation or nations. But because they're being coerced, threatened, leaders are being wiped out, assassinated if they don't follow the old regime and what they want. These leaders are afraid for their lives, so they go along with it. They line their pockets and they give away the treasures. Instead of saying, no, it stops with me. This looting of my country stops with me. And they just do what Ibrahim Traore just did.
The other two
And
competitors are
it's
just trying to
doing,
replicate what we do
developing the
best.
country
I can imagine
by
a
stopping
situation,
the
though,
exploitation
in which,
of natural resources,
the ruling elite
building
of the
factories,
country,
and really
is
not
receiving,
looking to Europe and France for any
gratuities
handouts
on the
anymore.
side.
But I'm going to tell you, to be honest, this reminds me of the mob. Isn't this how the mob operates?
The strong
I'm going to
man,
send in my
leader,
troops there to protect
and
you
not to
from
the
insurgents.
populace of the country.
In return,
Does
you
that
got to
sort
give
of,
us your
corruption
natural
and bribery go on
resources,
with regard
minerals, and your gold, your
the
diamond,
Belt and Road?
iridium,
Absolutely,
uranium,
Chairman.
everything
I
you
see
got
this
for
and, I don't
protection.
mind calling them
We're going
out,
to
but,
protect you from the
Tory and,
insurgents,
Burkina Faso,
but you got to give us
as
something
they,
in return.
know that,
We see a
both,
lot of gold, we see a lot of natural materials
whether it's
and
the,
minerals,
their gold
etc.,
reserves,
oil.
that
You got to
is
give that
all-
up to
all those
us.
proceeds
We're going to take
are
most of it and
just
you keep
in
a small
exchange,
percentage.
to
That's how
protect
these
the,
countries have
the
been
junta
operating
regime.
in
And
Africa
there's a number of those
for
examples across.
years.
Even in,
So it's a
even
mob
in, Sudan,
mentality
what's
that they
going on
have.
with the,
And if
rapid
you don't
support
give us what
forces,
we want,
and-
we're going to take
and,
you out.
Burhan of
Now
the,
tell me
Sudan
if these
forces,
governments are not
when you get down to it,
operating
it's
like
all
mob
about the
bosses.
revenue that
Drop
can
it
be
in the
drawn out of
comments.
that, and there are
Another
nefarious
thing I want to
actors
mention
in the
is
CC.
how do these insurgents get started? Because they don't have no money. These guys are the average guys living in Africa, dirt poor. And the leaders, whoever is
Langley, can
leading
you talk
them,
about why we
don't have
why we
anything much
care about
either.
what's happening in
So
Africa
who
right
is
now? Why
paying
are
the
we spending
cost?
money we're
Who
spending
sets
there?
up these
access
insurgents,
and
these
influence.
so-called insurgents?
I'd say
With
that a number of
sophisticated
countries
weaponry,
are
machinery,
at the tipping point of
vehicles,
actually being
etc.,
captured by
tanks,
the
whatever it
Russian
is they
Federation.
need, they get.
As they are
Take one guess.
Just spreading some of their
All
false
these
narratives across
countries
Libya. And
who wants
from a
the
strategic
leaders
answer
out
piece,
in Africa
access
because they're
influence
not doing
across
their
the
bidding?
whole grab.
Word on
That
the
is
street
NATO
is they're the
Southern
ones who pay
We
these
need to be able
insurgent
to
leaders
maintain access and
to get a
influence
coup
across
started. But I
Maghreb
guess
from
now it's
Morocco
no
all the
more
way to
word on
Libya.
the street because we heard the
excuse me,
congressman
the PRC
asking
and
General
Russia
Langley if
are
that's
also
what they've been doing
remaining
with U.S. dollars,
exploitative,
paying
where
for
possible,
coup
and
leaders to
coercive when
overthrow
necessary.
governments,
They want that ground.
legitimate
They want power
democratic
projecting
governments.
capabilities.
So now now
for the most
all
part,
the African
rest of the
countries who
continent,
have pulled away
is
from the
also
U.S. and
for
France,
mining
now they're
concessions,
accusing them
whether it be
of
gold or
lining
rare
their
minerals.
pockets. And
Both of them have a
there's
long-range plan.
terrorist
But I think
threats,
at the
and the
accelerated,
terrorism
pace,
is going
the
up,
Russian
and these
Federation
countries are in
is really
trouble, and we
trying
need
If
to
you
run
look
over
at
there to
Chad,
save them,
Burkina Faso,
and
Mali,
to save
Mauritania,
the day.
Niger,
But they're
and
not
a lot of these
telling us
countries,
that
the coup
really
is led
they
by
want to
someone
get back
we trained.
in there,
Now, I
get
quoted the
over
National Defense
there
Authorization
to
Act,
all
a
those
requirement for you to
countries
issue
that
us a
pulled
report
out
as to how many
from
coup
France
leaders
and the
our
U.S.
taxpayers have funded
and
the training
stop them
for.
from
But let me say,
exporting,
there's no
well, really
correlation.
stealing
And there's
their
no
natural
causation of
resources.
US
They want to
training
get back in
to
there with
these
military
members
Well, that's what
to
I'm
do
trying to
away with
find
the
out,
leaders.
because in like
and
a
to
dozen
start
countries,
mining again
the coup
to
leaders are
enrich
people
these
we train. Like,
European
is it safe to
nations
say
and the
that
U.S.
this failed, General Langley?
And the African people, the poor African
It's
people
safe
will
to say
still
that there's
remain
no
poor,
correlation
although they
or
got
causation
all
of
the
US
wealth. So
the
by
other two
putting out this
competitors are just
narrative
trying to
that,
replicate
oh,
what we
these
do
African
best.
nations are
I
in
can
trouble,
imagine a situation,
we need to
though,
save
in
them.
which,
It's just a
the
narrative that's
ruling
being
elite
put
of
out,
a
propaganda that's
country,
being put out, that
is
when they
receiving,
get rid of these leaders, the public will
gratuities on
think
the side,
that, oh, the insurgents did it.
that
But the question is,
inure to the
who is
benefit
funding
of
these
the strong
so-called
man
insurgents?
leader,
If you
and
want to
not
input
the
on this video or
populace
any
of the
other
country?
videos, don't forget
Does
to
that sort
drop
of,
your comments in the
corruption
comment
and bribery
section.
go on with
And
regard
please hit the like
the
bell,
Belt and Road?
subscribe, and
Absolutely,
share the
Chairman.
videos
You know, I see
on
this,
Carib
and,
Gold
I
All
might
Gold
call
number
them out, but
3,
I
as well
Tory
as
and, Big Camp
Viral
also,
Clips
you know, as
TV
they,
1.
know
And
that,
I also
both,
have another
you know,
channel,
whether
Black
it's,
History
whether it's
Stories
the,
13.
their
I'm
gold
over and out,
reserves,
y'all. I'll see you
that
on the
is
next one.
all
Peace in the
those
Middle
proceeds
East.
are just